Should on the LSAT. This is an idea for the podcast from LSAT Demon teacher Katie.
Okay.
She pointed out in our group Slack channel with all of the teachers
Hmm.
that a lot of her students in her classes were bringing up the word should on the LSAT and what it means and how to deal with it. She
Okay.
says, students seem endlessly confused by this word. Basically, on the show, you could talk about the difference between is versus should, or descriptive versus normative, or whatever we want to call it. I've had a lot of students ask why you can't logically have a should conclusion from a purely descriptive premise, or why you can't pick a should answer from a purely descriptive set of premises on a main conclusion or must be true question. Maybe you could frame it as responding to the question, when is it okay to pick an answer choice with the word should in it? Maybe we need an example argument.
Well, sure. Really quick, I just to illustrate the difference between descriptive and normative, the example I've given for years, and I hope this makes sense to
Oh,
people,
great. Uh-huh.
is I would always say in class, like, okay, just because, I should pay my taxes doesn't mean that I will, right?
Or do
So,
pay your taxes.
yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and then I would also go further and say, just because I should doesn't mean I will. And it doesn't necessarily mean that I even can, right? Like, so there's like the difference between like ability
And
and what
possibility.
actually
Yeah.
happens. And then the can, your ability to do something and whether you actually do it, those things are both descriptive because they're telling you the way the world is as opposed to the way the world should be, which is different, right? So if the LSAT tells you how the world is, and then someone draws a conclusion about the way the world should be, they're making a logical leap, a jump, and you can't do that. I think the
Let me
most,
give you an
yeah,
example, maybe. So this
sure,
is what I was thinking, right? Um, Lake Tahoe has clean air. Lake Tahoe has spectacular views. Lake Tahoe has the lake in the summer and skiing in the winter. Lake Tahoe is a beautiful place to live. Therefore, you should move to Lake Tahoe.
yep, yep.
And it's like it's the problem with that is the leap from descriptive to prescriptive, right? Or normative, we could call it, I suppose.
Yeah.
The word I like to in class, I like to yell at people about, I like to use really vivid examples if I can, right? To try to get people to really understand what I'm talking about. But I say that should is the F word of the LSAT, right? Like that's the
I
word
like
where
that.
it, when
Yep.
if the lawyer reads that and gets to should and goes, whoa, wait a second. You can tell me all the facts you want about Lake Tahoe. But the second you say you should, therefore, move to
Yeah.
Lake Tahoe,
You're
maybe,
swearing
maybe
in my
not.
face. Don't
What's
tell me.
that?
Don't tell me what to do. Don't tell me
Exactly.
what. And that's the swear. Um, yeah, I agree. I was gonna say in your example, you talk about how Lake Tahoe is beautiful, is nice, all that stuff, right? I was thinking to make it even tighter. Like you could say something like skiing is dangerous, right? You're talking about skiing.
Uh-huh.
And then you're like, therefore, you should not ski. Or rock
Right.
climbing without ropes is dangerous. Everybody's like, oh shit, don't do that. It's like that's you're jumping to that conclusion, even though the conclusion is so close, right? Okay, so rock climbing without ropes, you shouldn't do that. Well, that's just you're assuming just because it's dangerous, you shouldn't do it.
Yeah, climbing El Capitan without ropes is extremely dangerous. No one has ever done it before.
No one
Therefore,
survived.
you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
You don't get to tell my client Alex Honnold not to do it. You
Hmm.
need to you have to present a premise that says you shouldn't do things that are spectacularly dangerous that no one else has ever successfully done before.
Yeah.
Without that missing premise, you just can't reach that conclusion. So if this was a conclusion or a must be true question, we just wouldn't be able to get
But
there. I think also you can't go from prescriptive back to descriptive. I think you already said this, right? Like everybody should go to the dentist. If you don't go to the dentist, you will have cavities and your teeth will fall out of your head. Nobody wants to have their teeth falling out of their head. Ben doesn't want his teeth to fall out of his head. Which one of the following must be true? And if one of the answers was Ben will go to the dentist, or Ben does go to the dentist, right? So what we had there was a whole bunch of normative, prescriptive, however you want to say it, should premises. But that doesn't necessarily support, it doesn't prove the actual descriptive. Ben does go
What
to
was
the
the
dentist.
conclusion there?
Well, I was saying it in like it was just a bunch of facts, right?
Yeah.
So everyone should go. No one should let their teeth fall out of their head. If you don't go to the dentist, you will have your teeth fall out of your head.
So that right there that's shifting back to descriptive, but
okay. But the point is there were a whole bunch of shoulds in there. And then if it was a must be true question and one of the answers said, therefore, or one of the, if it could be an argument where the conclusion says, therefore, Ben does go to the dentist, Ben will go to the dentist, Ben can go to the dentist. Or if this was just a must be true or a supported question, and one of those things was in the answer choices, you would say.
I would say I should, but that's it. You wouldn't say that I will or can. We don't know.
Right. If you can't reach that conclusion that you actually will. If it was an assumption question,
you'd be assuming that you do what you should do.
Yeah, exactly. And that might be both a necessary and a sufficient assumption of the argument. Ben does do the things he should do would be the obvious missing piece of that argument. And I think you could probably see that as both a sufficient or necessary assumption.
Yeah.
The one thing I just want people to notice it.
Yeah, it should, like you said, it's the F word, right, on the LSAT. And if it doesn't stick out to you like the F word, you just haven't been burned by it enough. It's a value judgment. It's saying what should happen, for the lack of a better word, as opposed to what actually is happening. That's the key difference. And if you don't see the difference between those two things, I don't know. Just start thinking about all the things you'd like to do in your life or you feel like you should do in your life, but you're failing to do. That might be a good place to start.